I'm a bit uncomfortable. Yes.
Oh, I've never seen you like this before. I've never seen you like this before, in general and like podcast related.
Oh, great. New aspect.
Hey, folks, we have found the topic of the day, and I have now discovered a new way to find the topic of the day.
Making me uncomfortable and well up. Woo. Okay, well, we might as well just launch into it.
Okay.
Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Georgiana.
We're already into it from before we hit record, and I'm already welling up because our topic has got a personal bent for me. It's apologies versus action. Woo! What was the phrase? We're not accepting apologies this year, just changed behaviors.
Yes, it says we're not accepting verbal apologies this year, only changed behavior.
Verbal apologies. Yeah, okay. Self-connection practice me, baby. Feeling my bum. I'm feeling my
feet. This feels like a good holding time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's practice a hold. And this time I'm going to be pretty vague about what that means, because I want you to discover what feels like a gentle, nourishing hold for you. And you might know right away what that means and what your body would enjoy as a nourishing hold. You might not know at all in general, or you might not know in this moment. And so this is an invitation to discover, to allow yourself to discover what kind of holding would feel good for you right now. And notice what happens to your breath and your body posture as you find the one that feels like the right fit for this moment. We're getting in the habit of noticing how your body gives you signs and cues and clues that, oh yes, this is what I need right now. And then follow your body's impulse for any kind of movement that you might need.
I sure tend to protect my heart with my hands and to rock like a baby.
That one feels good for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real theme, heart protection. I put on weight and have giant boobs, all of this heart protection psychosomatically. Yeah. I have a big squishy heart and I didn't know it for a long time.
You have a very big squishy heart.
Yeah. You're on.
Yeah. I can read one sentence to Steph and already she's like, oh, I feel it. I feel it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always right there. It hasn't always felt welcome.
I think the act of holding while emotions are stirring in us is so healing, because I think a lot of people can relate to their emotions, their feelings not being welcome. Right? So you are in the act of welcoming right now.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to do some tapping while I tell this story. Can you repeat the phrase one more time, please?
So this is a phrase that I came across on Instagram. It's I want to give credit where credit's due. So it's from the page I Have ADHD podcast. And the sentence here is, we're not accepting verbal apologies this year, only changed behavior.
Man, that can be so hard. Whew. And it's family or people that you feel like some kind of desperate reliance on, you know? So, what this brought up for me, whew, was an incident you're very familiar with. Gee, we've talked about this quite a bit. Um, I had a real hard time a while ago with my mom. Um, weight and body has been a contentious issue at my family home and with me and my body. Um, and we have very different approaches. Yeah. Um, Mom's the sort of person who gets a fact and just it's off to the races. She implements that fact. She learns this thing is healthy. She's off. For me, her ways of encouraging have the exact opposite effect, you know? So all of the ways that she would encourage me to want to lose weight cause me to want to eat cake and drink whiskey and smoke everything I can find, you know? And we've had that conversation many times, and she doesn't want to be, you know, causing me pain. She's also managing her own pain. That can get very confusing for humans.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this blow up about my weight that was, in a way, a gift because it was so clear and obvious, you know? Nothing subtle about it. And when I was dealing with that afterwards, you know, she had apologized. And I was so activated that, I mean, the apology didn't really matter because I was so activated. But G helpfully pointed out a behavior that I was doing that reminded you, G, of a toddler. And it was so true. So, can I share this example that you gave me at the time?
Of course.
You were working with a family who had a toddler, and bedtime was like being in hell. So, you asked the parents, tell me about the bedtime routine. And it was okay. So, we say it's bedtime, we go get ready for bed, we do all the things, we read him a story, we say it's lights out, we leave, and then he screams and has a fit and just will not settle down. So we go back in and we read to him some more, and then eventually he settles down and finally he's gone to bed. And then you asked the kiddo what his bedtime routine was. And he said all the same things. We do all the stuff, we get ready for bed, and then mom and dad read me a story. And then they turn off the lights and leave. And then I scream and cry. And then they come back and read me another story. And then it's bedtime. And you were like, if you want this behavior to change with your mom, you're going to have to do something different. Ooh. And I didn't talk to her for like 3 weeks. Tapping.
Yeah. Ooh. It's okay. Take your time.
It was so hard to break that pattern. So hard to cause her pain and to feel that disconnection.
Mm-hmm. Because what would have been your old pattern?
Just to accept her apology, ignore all of my own feelings and needs, and get back to life, you know?
And talk to her all the time or talk to her more frequently than 3 weeks without talking? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. No, that was a big deal to not talk. And, you know, my dad was messaging me to let me know how hard it was for her. But it had been such a big, obvious no that I was able to hold on to that and remember myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that way, it was a gift. And certainly, our behavior pattern together changed after that, you know?
Mm.
But it needed that bit of shift. Word apologies and real apologies and change are such a different thing.
Yeah. Changed behavior.
Yeah.
Easy.
And my behavior having to change. It was my behavior that had to change, you know?
Yeah, because in your old pattern of what was comfortable for you and your mom, it would create the outward belief that I can say something that's hurtful to Steph, and then I can just apologize in that moment, and then we're good to go. And then we can just repeat that cycle over and over again. I can just say something hurtful next time. Not because I think your mom wanted to be hurtful. It's well intentioned. It's like you said, it's wrapped up in her own fears and worries and wishes for you. But the impact of it was that it hurt you. And you have said many times that it hurt you. So your words said it hurt you. Your words might have even asked for her to stop. I don't know. Did your words ask her to stop?
Very, very clearly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And your actions said what instead?
Here I am, you know? Yeah, it's some like words are almost useless, certainly in this context. Totally meaningless. My verbal requests were effectively meaningless. Her verbal apologies effectively meaningless. You know, it's all action.
Right. So you were wanting change behavior from her ultimately, and
And
you
asking
saw.
for it, right? The confusion comes because we ask for these things and they're agreed to, and we all seem to be on the same page. And
Yeah.
then life happens.
Yeah. And the same cycle repeats.
Yeah.
Right. I always talk about, what are we teaching people with our actions? Do our actions actually match our words in terms of setting boundaries, right? For some of us, setting a boundary, we equate that to saying what's not okay or asking for what we need, which is already such a huge accomplishment for anyone who has grown up believing that their needs didn't matter or they weren't the priority, or you don't deserve to have the opportunity to ask for what you want, and how you feel about things is irrelevant. If you have grown up believing that, or you've been in relationships that shifted you into that belief, it already feels so hard to use our words to ask for what we need and what we want, and to say what's not okay. And then to come to the realization that it's not sufficient to leave it at just the words. We also need to practice having our actions line up with our words. That if someone is not treating us the way that we desire to be treated, that I now, even though I've asked for things to change and they might have agreed to it with the best of intentions, if that behavior isn't changed, then now I need to make the next choice of what will happen now. Right? Am I going to walk away from this situation? What will I change about how I do this dance with this person?
Which brings us to the clean and dirty pain we talked about last week, right?
Yeah.
And I think about how many relationships I got into with this confusing thread throughout, Oh, well, he said he wanted this and we agreed to this and that, but this other thing is what's happening.
Yeah. What's really happening is a really good prompt to use. We both agreed on such and such. We both said such and such. And what's really happening is.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think that 3 weeks that you chose to change your behavior, you chose to have your behavior match your words, that said your word says I don't want this, and your behavior started to match those words more with your mom in that case? What do you imagine that was like for your mom to see a different habit pattern from your side? Or maybe you guys have spoken about it?
We have not.
What I imagine
is that for her it was both irritating and sad and reassuring, probably. Um, my belief is that people want or feel reassured by some kind of clarity from us, and it's clarity of action, really. Some kind of integrity that we're projecting out through our energy and behaviors and words. So I think it's confusing for people, including my mom, when we say we don't want something, but we keep showing up for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. This happens so often with parenting and with little kids. We think that if we say it, then it's enough and the kid should just do it. And that should cause the behavior to change. And in reality, I think we're just confusing the little kiddos because our words say it. And then they learn, well, mom will ask me for something or dad will ask me to do something. And what that really means is she's going to say it once. And then she's going to say it like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more times. And each time will be a little bit louder and her face will change a bit more. And then the 10th time is when she says it so loud. And that's when I know I need to stop doing that thing.
Yeah.
And to that child, they're like, I wait for the 10th time. That's how I know I really have to stop, because she's supposed to say it 9 more times after the first time. Right. And in our minds as adults, we're like, but I said it once. That should be enough. And it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. And we bring that same situation also to ourselves. Am I going to hold myself to this thing that I've said I want? Or is my behavior actually changing? It's such a difference. I notice now that I notice my mind much more clearly, I can see those stories being built in the moment. If somebody tells me they're going to do something, there are people who I just know they're going to do that. And there are people for whom I know, well, that if they say they're going to do this, it probably means that I might now experience X, Y, and Z and this other thing. And your brain's doing that immediately, It's pretty wild to watch.
Yeah, you definitely can start collecting data and evidence on whose actions match their words, right? And noticing how it feels in your body and how it feels to be in connection with these people when you know that what they say they will do, right? And if they don't do it, because sometimes we don't, sometimes we forget, sometimes we don't feel like it anymore, sometimes whatever. But do they come back and acknowledge that was the agreement and that they didn't deliver on it and find the new plan, for how it will go moving forward? It took me years to live life according to what this quote is suggesting, that I'm just going to bring it up again. We're not accepting verbal apologies this year, only changed behavior. I would encourage you, when you're listening to this, to practice changing the words a little bit and saying this out loud and seeing how it feels in your body. I am not accepting verbal apologies this year. I am only accepting changed behavior. And just notice what that stirs up in sensations, in emotions, in thoughts. I had accepted verbal apologies for decades. And years ago, I was like looking at my relationship patterns and looking at like, why do I feel so pissed off? Why do I feel so hurt? And I realized that, and why do I feel so like unhappy in these relationship dynamics? And what I realized was I had gotten into the habit of accepting people's verbal apologies. And they would apologize and they would be sincere. And I could tell that they were from a place of love and care. And then they would talk about how they're going to change that behavior. and they're seeing the harmful impact it's creating. And sometimes they'd even thank me for pointing out that that wasn't working. And then what I would notice is it would happen again. And it would happen again and would happen again and would come with another apology and another apology. And when I looked back at these relationships, I was like, what have I been teaching? You know, like there's that saying, we teach people how to treat us. I'm like, what have I been teaching these people about how to treat me and what's okay? And I had to take full responsibility. It was like a gut punch of, oh, I've been teaching these people that it's okay to do things or say things that are hurtful and harmful and then just apologize and then do it over and over again. And as long as they apologize, I'll have this moment of like, oh, they see my pain. They see how they're being self-responsible and owning it. And when I grew up, never really hearing a verbal apology from my parents, it wasn't a thing. Then I was so susceptible to the verbal apology in that I was so vulnerable to it. Like anytime I did get a verbal apology, especially if it was one that I didn't have to poke and prod for, I was like, wow, this person is so great. This relationship is so good. Right? Because I was used to like non-existent apologies.
Totally. Yeah.
And it took me some time to see that that pattern was rooted back in my childhood, that my parents would apologize. Like this was years after when I would make a big fuss about it. And I recalled that the only time I really got an apology is if I made a big fuss about it. If I made a big fuss and I was showing how angry and hurt I was, I would get an apology. And then in the end, it would happen again and would happen again and would happen again. And sometimes it had another apology, sometimes it didn't. But I realized I got accustomed to that as being normal and okay. It was just like, well, they did their best. They love me. And yeah, it took me a long time. And they're owning it.
These are two
right?
confusing terms that can really be co-opted.
Yeah. So what I've realized is that I choose to be in connection with people who have the ability or the willingness to practice growing the ability to have that self-awareness of when things are not okay. Like I don't have to point out all the time when something is not okay. And also when someone apologizes, that I can trust that through their actions, I see that they are practicing those skills and new habit patterns for them that will create a different outcome in the future.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So in those 3 weeks, I got to be with my own behaviors. There was a time where that wouldn't have been good. But I spent that time being loving with me. So that's what I was looking for, right? So I could do that myself. That was a shift in patterns, you know?
Because what do you mean when you say that wouldn't have been good in the past? Having 3 weeks to be with myself and how I was feeling.
Drinky, smoky pot. Drinky, smoky pot ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cake. Grilled cheese.
Skip the dishes at McDonald's.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're glad I don't live in a city with skip the dishes anymore. That's a behavior change too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are the things, right? Honoring what I actually wanted, right? I think I used to be so just desperate for connection and love that anyone saying that's what they had would get my attention, you know? But what's really inside is wanting this depth of care that is helpful for me to experience from myself. and I want to honor the connection with my family. So, yeah, even now, balancing, we've got different interests. Great. How do you connect with somebody with whom you have very different interests and lifestyles? So I know there's going to be some stuff that's not going to jibe with me. And it used to be that I would like feign interest, which is an interesting dynamic because it's like, no, I'm actually here because I care and love you and want to hear what you have to say. I'm not interested in the subject matter. And I don't need to pretend to be, right? I used to, that's interesting. Oh, tell me more about that. Like, no, you don't need to do that. You can if you want to, but in this case, I'm thinking about in particular, I don't want to. The other day, Mom was talking about insurance policies, and I just felt my body shut down. Just everything left. I was like, okay, I'm here for this conversation because I love my mom. She's got concerns about insurance policies, but I can no longer make myself pretend to be ways I'm not. It's been a long time that way. So I'm, breathing my way through and not contributing much. And then eventually she just says, oh, I'm going to stop talking about this. This isn't an interesting topic. You're not into this. God, I'm not into it. Thank you.
That's so neat because how many of us have feigned interest when you're not interested at all? And what I take from that exchange with your mom, like, yeah, you could have said, Mom, I love you and I'm not interested. I do want to connect with you. Can we talk about, cupcakes? I don't know, whatever, something other than insurance policies. But what's neat is when you let your mom see your authentic experience, which is no interest, she could pick up on cues and be like, oh, well, maybe let's talk about something else because you're obviously not interested. But when we feign interest, when we put on some facade, something that's not true to how we're really feeling, we're robbing the other people of these cues that could inform.
And we're kind of gaslighting them, like, to be honest, when we're pretending to be something we're not, it's reasonable that those around us should feel confused. Yeah.
And like, I think now that I've also learned to not take everything personally and also spoken out for what feels good and what doesn't feel good for me, I would much rather someone say, I love you, and this topic I see excites you so much, it bores me to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to feel connected to you, and like, can we do this instead or talk about this instead? Right? And like, that feels so much cleaner to me and true than someone sitting there. Like, the idea right now of me sitting with someone excitedly sharing something with them and it is boring them to death and they're pretending like they're enjoying it, that makes my stomach not feel nice.
Pretty icky, right?
Yeah. But I think in the past, I would have been like, yeah, just pretend you like it. At least make me feel good.
Yeah. Right. And so, unsurprisingly, I attracted a best friend who's the sort of person who will listen for a minute to the story with one eyebrow going up slightly and then eventually go, oh my God, so boring. Great story. Can we talk about something else? So clear. You never wonder what she likes. I think you probably would have wondered what I liked before. Couldn't tell because I was pretending to like everything.
Yeah, I definitely have had lots of that in me. I would have benefited from having a friend. I know who you're talking about, like a friend like her, and learned earlier on that it's okay to, like, you can love someone and care about them and really not share the same interests. And you don't have to be mean or rude or pretending that it really excites you.
Truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies.
Apologies. It makes me think about taking responsibility for myself and apologies, right? When I'm offering an apology, am I willing to actually do the things differently, practice doing the things differently to have that not happen again, or at least start shifting that pattern?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Have you encountered in yourself an unwillingness ever to shift a pattern, or?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't remember specifics, but I remember a general feel. This was more like if I think about my ex, and such a good guy. Like, Eddie's such a great guy, such a kind person. And I think he would just want to help people out. He'd want to help me out, even though we're not together as a couple anymore. I'm the mom of his kids. And I benefited a lot from his care and kindness, in that I knew I could always count on him. And sometimes I think I even knew I was asking for things that, like, maybe didn't put him in the best position, but maybe weren't the funnest for him to do or be a part of. And he would say yes. And I used to run this story through my head of like, well, if he says yes, like it's his choice, right? He's saying yes, he could say no, which is true. So I'm just gonna go with he says yes. So I'm gonna just go with that. But I remember a distinct time where he started to say no. And these are like simple things. They might be like, can you watch the kids an extra day? Or, because I had some workshop or course or something I wanted to do. Um, and they were things that he technically could have said yes to. But he was starting to, I think, honor his own comfort and pleasure and spaciousness in his life. And he would say, I'd love to, and I can't. And there'd be a moment of like, oh man, that sucks. Because in my mind, I just thought I could count on you and you'd take care of it. And then also part of me that was like, yes, good for you for saying no. And as much as that sucks for me, I will figure it out. And so that's more of an example of a time where I saw him matching his actions and, like having his actions sort of really be more from a place of caring for himself too. Right. So that was really neat to witness. And I think that is a great thing to notice when you start feeling happy and like a sense of pride for people who start asserting themselves and standing up for themselves and asking for what they want and saying no. Because sometimes they'll say, people don't like it when you set boundaries because the old way was benefiting them. Right. And so you'll get pushback. And so I don't know. I feel like it's neat when someone says no to me. I'm like, oh, good. Yeah. I'm glad.
Because people also like boundaries. We don't like that boundary that's changed because now we're going to have to adapt in some way we hadn't anticipated. But we do like to be somewhat in a box to know what's expected of us and what we might expect from the outside world.
Yeah. So it's been a neat journey. I'm trying to think if there's been things like you asked. Apologies, like changed behavior, been resistant to? Is that what you're saying? You were asking?
Yeah. But I'm also aware of time.
Yeah, nothing really comes to mind right now. Maybe we can chat about that another time.
Okay. Do you have a closing practice in mind?
The closing practice, yeah, because I hear helicopter flying, so we'll use that. Take a moment to feel your feet on the ground or your butt on the chair. And listen for the farthest away sound that you can hear. Notice your breath. And then we're going to practice listening to the closest sound that you can hear. And then you could practice bringing that awareness further away again. What's a far away sound that you can hear? Can you squish your toes? And what's a close by sound you can hear? Mm.
I love this one. Very auditory.
It's neat. I had to train myself on this one because as much as I get overstimulated by sound, I was not very skilled at being able to really hear what the things were. Yeah, I think I had so there's so much yelling going on in my house that I learned to shut down hearing things.
Oh, you numbed your hearing. I numbed my body and feelings. Twinsies.
Twinsies.
Okay. We do have to go, so we'll sign off here. Anything else that you want to say?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
Well, as always, thank you for being with us. Like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. We'll see you next time.
Bye.